Okay, now we're going to check out the operation of this economizer. So we want to get things working. So the first thing we're going to do, we've got these two terminals up here. If I take TR and then I jumper it to 1. Okay, now this thing is going to start working. And so if I wanted, what essentially I've done there is I've made a call for first stage cooling. First thing I'm going to do here is I actually want to see if this thing's going to work. So if I go to this minimum position, notice this is a minimum position pot. And I open it a little, and it starts to work. Now I can see it's rotating and so on, so I know it's working. That's told me a little about it. On the last video on the economizer, we just did some simple things about seeing about the minimum position and so on. But one of the things that told us was that the motor works. Now the motor's actually here. This is this N314 number is an electronic part that's mounted to it to kind of tell the motor what to do. The motor's actually down here. So we know the motor works. We know all the connections are good because we got things to rotate. Now this is not the most complicated economizers. In fact, this is about the simplest one you can get. There's no mixed air sensor. There's only the outside air sensor. And when you use this thing, it's essentially saying that if the outdoor temperature is below a certain point and I need air conditioning, it's going to open up the outside air dampers. And it's using the outside air temperature to determine how much to open. So that outdoor temperature sensor really is the heart of this whole thing. If that thing is showing a certain outdoor temperature, then it'll open them wider. If it's showing a different temperature, it may close them, depending on what it is. There's no low ambient hooked up on this thing. If the outside temperature is too low, then a low ambient would shut it off, but it doesn't have that either. We pretty much troubleshot this thing. This thing works. Okay, let's see if the outdoor temperature sensor is working. Okay, the condition is I come out here, even though I know the motor works, I've checked my minimum position and the like, it still doesn't open. So it's possible we have a problem with the outside air temperature sensor. Now this one, the one on this is not an enthalpy control. It's just a temperature control that uses varying resistance to determine how wide you're going to open the outdoor dampers and close off the indoor dampers. This one is a C7650A1001, but it's hooked up to the economizer controls, and let's say it had failed, and the economizer is going to stop in one position pretty much, and that's it. Okay, if it's open, it's going to go to minimum position. So let's take a look at this and see if we can tell if that's where our problem lies. Back to our control, I'm going to look for SO plus and SO. Okay, you can see those right there. Now those are the leads that go to the temperature control. Now what I'm going to do is just pop those off of there to imitate a failure open. Okay, nothing happens. Let's say I'm outside, it's 50 degrees outside and I'm calling for cool, and this thing's in minimum position. You can kind of see this is minimum position. It's a little hard to see there, but it's in minimum position. What if I was to jump her out SO and SO plus. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jumper T1 to T. And you can also put a 5.6K resistor on that, but in this case this is all I'm doing. Then I'm going to jumper SO and SO plus. Now the motor starts going. Now it hasn't been going before. This was your situation. You didn't have any movement, though your minimum position did work. So when I jumper out that thermostat and I jumper T and T1, it's going to open. Now let's take a look at the dampers. Now you can see the damper is going wide open. That's what it should do. So if you jumper T1 and you jumper T2 and then SO and SO plus, and the thing opens up properly, then you have a problem in your temperature control, your outside temperature control. That's a simple kind of a diagnostic on these things. They can get a lot more complex when they have the mixed air sensors and return air sensors and so on, but this is a very simple one, and it'll give you an idea how to troubleshoot this thing if there's a failure. Remember now, 9 times out of 10 the problem's going to be in this motor. For some reason that seems to be what I end up replacing most of the time, but this will give you an idea of how to do some simple troubleshoot on one of these things if the motor does work and you suspect the outside temperature control. Okay, that's it on this one. I'd love to do more on these things. If I get one that's a little more complex, I will bring it to your attention and we'll look at it.